4th, 2023. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. There's at least one member that, no,
Nope.
we won't. Shh.
Nope.
There. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Town of Burlington will be holding the May 4th, 2023 meeting of the Planning Board as a hybrid meeting. The Governor issued an executive order on March 12th, 2020, authorizing remote meetings under General Law Code 30A, Section 20, and extended by Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, including permitting remote meetings and participation until March 31st, 2025.
As always, members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting, but please note that while an option for remote attendance is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the hearing will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast, unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular interest in any specific item on this agenda should make plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. For those of you who are looking to participate remotely, townofburlington.webex.com is the URL. The meeting number is 2343-571-2001. Our meeting password is 1645, and you can join us on the WebEx with your phone at 617-315-0704. The meeting is being broadcast on the BCAT government channel, which is found on Comcast 99, RCN 15, and Verizon 41. It's being streamed on Facebook Live via the BCAT government Facebook page.
Thank you. We have some items being continued off our agenda tonight. May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to take items 6N through 6R together and out of purpose for discussion purposes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item N is a continued public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to section 4.2.7.4, laboratories engaged in research, experimental and testing activities, including but not limited to the fields of chemistry, electronics, engineering, geology, non-biological medicine, and physics of the zoning bylaws. 22 Terry Avenue, AP Terry LLC is the applicant. Item O is a continued public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to section 4.2.7.4.1, life science laboratories engaged in research, prototype manufacture, experimental and testing activities, including but not limited to the fields of pharmaceuticals, biomedical technologies and engineering, life system technologies, environmental and biomedical devices, biosafety level 4, BL4 laboratories as defined by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, which are prohibited in Burlington of the zoning bylaws. 22 Terry Avenue, AP Terry LLC is the applicant. Item P is a continued public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to section 4.2.7.4.2, life science laboratories engaged in the manufacture of life science technologies and medicines for commercial production to the market, including but not limited to pharmaceuticals, biomedical technologies and engineering, life science, life systems technologies, environmental biomedical devices, biosafety level 4, BL4 laboratories as defined by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, which are prohibited in Burlington of the zoning bylaws. 22 Terry Avenue, AP Terry LLC is the applicant. Item Q is a continued public hearing, application for approval of special permit pursuant to section 4.2.7.9, hazardous and toxic materials, chemicals used for storage, transport, disposal, or discharge of the zoning bylaws. 22 Terry Avenue, AP Terry LLC is the applicant. Item R is a continued public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to section 4.2.7.11, generation or storage of hazardous waste, limited to the volumes classified as a very small quantity generator, VSQG of the zoning bylaws. 22 Terry Avenue, AP Terry LLC is the applicant. May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to continue these items to the Planning Board meeting of June 1st, 2022 at the request of the applicant's attorney in an email dated April 27th, 2023.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Announcements.
Sure. So we got a message, I think you guys did too, from the Marshall Simons Middle School Lego Robotics League team. They came and presented their project to us, and they went on to win 2 awards for their innovation, which they demonstrated to us, and they sent us a handwritten thank you note. So I'm just going to take it down, pass it around so you guys can see that, which I thought was that was wonderful of them to say thank you to us. And they did a really great job, and I'm really proud of them. Town meeting is this Monday, everybody. And so I will be doing a report during the beginning of town meeting, during the time for reporting of boards and commissions. I will be giving a presentation on the MBTA communities law, what it means at a high level for town meeting members, so that they have kind of general idea. I know people probably hear a lot about what it actually means, you know, what it means online, but this is kind of, you know, the official, this is what it is. And then I'm also giving an update on the master plan, which we're gonna talk about a little bit tonight as well. So if you guys wanna come and support me, that'd be cool. The ZBRC sign subcommittee will have a meeting on May 15th at 5:30. The location is to be determined. ZBRC is having a meeting on May 17th at 6:30. The location is to be determined as well. And as part of the Mall Road Middlesex Turnpike corridor visioning plan, they are having, Melissa and her team, looking at form-based code, is gonna have a community design workshop for the mall corridor. So it's a charrette, a design charrette for how to plan for Mall Road Middlesex Turnpike in the future. And there's gonna be modeling, there's gonna be site walks, talking, learning, and it would, you know, more information online, and they want you to register. So we'll send that out. We'd love to see you guys there. But it's a really interactive planning workshop.
I think we kind of chatted originally about a planning board member being there for certain
Oh,
periods of
easily.
time.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, maybe you can send out an email to the entire board and figure out what everybody's
yeah.
availability is, so that we can have somebody,
Yeah, I mean, it's,
whether it be staff or a board member.
So
Yeah,
You're on May 8th, right? Your meeting that you're given?
town meeting is May 8th, this Monday at 7 in the high school auditorium.
Okay, I'll be.
Also, you know, just kind of want to make note of what's on the screen right now. So it's our social media, so Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and how folks can get in touch with the planning board via our social media. And kudos to Caleb, because he's our social media master and has done, you know, worlds of effort into, you know, kind of getting this put together. So thank you, Caleb.
Absolutely.
And I'm gonna add one selfish plug, because I am sponsoring the townwide yard sale for this, the fifth year in a row, which is May 20th, and folks can sign up with the Burlington Rec Department if they are interested in selling. There is a community space, or they can sell at their own home, and you know, we've had upwards between 50 and 70 sellers each year, and I've had folks come from Maine, New Hampshire,
Really?
Rhode Island. I mean, yard sailors, they're pretty diehard, so.
That's true.
That's my selfish plug. That's all I have. Does anyone else have any announcements? Okay, let's move on to administrative matters. Is Melissa online?
So I just got a text from Melissa that she is not able to jump on, so,
Okay.
but I can handle it because it's a pretty straightforward, request. So, Melissa, as you know, is our economic development director, and she's going to town meeting, to request, $40,000, for, placemaking and, events, money to do events in the town center, and, you know, beer gardens, all sorts of different things. And so she was just wondering if the planning board would recommend favorably and endorse this warrant article to town meeting, that this is a good thing and it's good for the town and it's worthy, money well spent, so.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's great. You know, I've been to a couple of beer gardens, and it was definitely a very well-received event, and I think it's a great opportunity to bring communities together, or the community together as a whole. May I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to recommend favorably to town meeting on the petition to raise and appropriate funds to expand the economic development efforts for placemaking and community events.
Do we want to put a dollar value on that? Is it, was it?
And the warrant is 40,000. If you wanna amend the motion to say 40,000.
I want them sliding in there like four.
You don't want open bar?
Only for,
Raise and appropriate $40,000 of funds to expand, okay?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 You know, it'd be really cool, and if they could do it at the sculpture park. Like an event at the
Yes.
sculpture park.
That's
So-
what we actually have been talking to Melissa about that, and I'm hoping that we can make that happen, because it's a bigger space, and it would also get a different crowd into the park, I think.
That'd be great.
Idea.
yeah, it'd be really cool.
Absolutely. Okay, moving on, we have a discussion about the declaration of completion of a definitive subdivision.
So I think we have, Phyllis, and that's gonna come up on the screen. Actually here, I think, cause you can see, the camera can see you easier if you're there.
Good evening.
So this is, this subdivision, I think the board permitted it in 2010. It's a subdivision that is only a 2-lot subdivision, so it was 1 lot and it was split into 2. It's a subdivision because it was granted a variance. As you can see, the frontage is on Wynn Street, and there's a 20-foot frontage and an 80-foot frontage, and so, the planning board needed to determine that there was safe access to it, and so that's why it came to the planning board, and it is complete, and so now, Phyllis is here, to kind of ask for the vote to complete it.
To actually, yes, vote it completed. We have completed all of the requirements, the most important being that a stormwater and erosion control permit was obtained from the Conservation Commission, and both lots meet all the current requirements for stormwater. Roof runoff and stormwater is directed into infiltration systems on both lots. Other than that, many waivers were granted, and the primary reason I think it came before the planning board was to provide access, adequate access. The private road driveway was widened to 20 feet of pavement up to the first driveway, and all of that has been completed.
Do we have any comments from neighbors, or were neighbors notified that there was a completion, or?
I think that, as far as the neighbors know, these 2 houses have been built and they're new, and they're, brand new houses in the neighborhood, so
No complaints?
I don't think so.
And we granted waivers at the time, correct?
The Board of Appeals did, but then we also granted waivers in the subdivision rules and regs for things like roadway and all that.
To minimize impact.
And
all
minimize
that stuff,
impact,
yeah.
all that stuff, you
Yep,
bet,
yep,
Joe,
yep.
that's right. Yep, that's correct.
Good memory.
Does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns? May I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion in consideration of the work within the 25 Margaret Road definitive subdivision. The planning board hereby declares that the subdivision is complete.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Short and sweet. Have a good night.
But wait, there's more.
Oh, wait, no,
We
I'm
can't,
sorry, the fun doesn't stop there. I'm sorry. Okay, let's go.
Phyllis is back before us for Patricia Way definitive subdivision. It's a 5-lot subdivision that was permitted, I think, was it 2018? that year?
That's what, yeah,
2018.
March of 2018.
And so we permitted the subdivision, but it hasn't been built yet, and Phyllis tells me that they're getting ready to build it, so they wanna make sure they're current on the subdivision, so they're asking for an extension of time to build the subdivision.
Which one is this off of?
This one's off Taylor.
Okay, so
Yeah.
just having an understanding that this was granted, you said back in 2018, and the applicant is very well aware that they still have to adhere to 2023 guidelines in building laws and
Yes.
codes. Okay.
Actually, and we have received a stormwater and erosion control permit from Conservation for the roadway.
Perfect. Does anyone else have any questions, comments, concerns?
Yeah, motion to approve the request of Murray Hills Inc., applicant for an extension of time to complete a build-out of the Patricia Way subdivision, definitive subdivision, from April 11, 2023 to May 4th, 2024, as requested by the applicant.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Have a good night.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Phyllis. Have a good one.
Moving on to the discussion point of housing and town chapters of the master plan.
So I am going to the town meeting to give them an update of the master plan. The only 2 chapters that have not been voted on are the housing chapter, which has 3 recommendations, and the town center chapter, which has more recommendations, but we will be tackling all those when we hire a consultant to completely overhaul town center and kind of reimagine the town center and how we want it to look. So
Do we have an ETA on that of when we're hiring?
So I don't want to have too many pots in the fire. We have a lot of focus for people up at Mall Road, Middlesex Turnpike, right now, and then MBTA Communities is upcoming. So this is my kind of next long-term, next like big planning initiative that I kind of want to,
Do we think it makes sense to close this chapter and add this to the next master plan? Just a thought.
close this chapter.
Like, because we've already had the town center, what we originally envisioned, this is kind of, I mean, I know the question is going to be posed. It's been a bit since we've started the master plan, as opposed to when we're actually going to be completing it, so where we don't know, we have a definitive answer of when we're actually going to finish the master plan. If we're gonna hire a consultant to focus on town center, does it make sense to go with what we have?
Yes, because what the recommendations state for the town center section actually say you should hire a consultant and completely look at the town center and kind of see.
The folks in the audience.
Oh,
don't
sorry,
know
yes,
what's
yes,
here, so
yes.
I'm
So
just
yes,
trying to
yes,
help the
yes,
narrative.
yes. This is, it's all coming full circle, and yes, the recommendations do recommend hiring essentially to look at the town center for all sorts of things. So yeah. So
Okay.
I'm basically just asking for your blessing.
Sure. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at this? Mm-hmm. Is everyone in agreement?
Yes.
May I have a motion then?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the housing section and the town center section of the master plan, thereby completing the master plan.
Second.
All those in
and
favor?
third.
Aye. Feels good, doesn't it, Liz?
May I say hallelujah?
I didn't think it'd be emotional. Like,
Yes, very happy.
Thank you.
Okay.
Moving on to matters of appointment.
okay,
Item A is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to section 6.1.3, non-conforming single and two-family residential structures of the zoning bylaws, 5 Keens Road. Joshua and Chantal Goslin are the applicants.
so if I may, Madam Chair, I just kind of want to give a brief introduction to
Please.
this property. It's before us for a section 6 special permit. The property has a conforming single-family house, and they have a garage that is within the side yard setback. The property owners want to build an addition onto the house, connecting the single-family house to their garage. Thereby, the building inspector has said, now they're creating, the entire structure is non-conforming, because it's technically, the whole thing's within the side setback. So what we are here to do, or you are here to do, is to make a determination that the expansion of the pre-existing non-conforming structure is not more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing non-conforming structure. With that, I will give it to the applicant.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Tanya Carrier from Culsa Design, and with me on the screen is Joshua and Chantal Goslin, the owners of the home. So as you explained very well, we're here with a kind of what I think is a simple proposal. We have an existing ranch-style single-family home with a detached garage. We'd like to propose an addition to the rear of the home that would attach the garage and enlarge the kitchen. Also, we'd like to add a bedroom above the garage, access through the main home. There won't be a bathroom or anything up there. And the existing garage is required to be 15 feet from the right side lot line, and we're currently at 7 feet, so it is in violation. So it's a pretty simple proposal. I'm happy to go further into detail if you like, or just open up for questions.
Sure, I mean, for me, I think it's pretty straightforward. I will say, I did receive phone calls, and I know that other members of the board also received phone calls about this project. I think, we just want to make sure the applicant's very well aware that this is not for the purpose of a two-family home. This is for the purpose for a single family. No Airbnbs are allowed in the town of Burlington. But other than that, I don't have any issue with it personally. Does anyone else have any questions, comments, concerns?
Just one question, you're not actually going closer to the sideline, right? You're just
Correct.
Bigger structure, that's.
Keeping the existing footprint, but adding the room on top. There already is a half story, but we'd be raising the roof a few feet.
Well, and you're connecting, so you're.
Connecting.
You're changing the footprint, but,
Yes, but not on the violation side.
right, but you're not expanding the,
Non-conformity.
really expanding the violation.
Correct,
7 feet. You're not going any closer than it already is. You're just connecting the buildings and going.
exactly.
Question, how long has the garage been there?
I don't have that information. I assume the house was built in 50, 55. Chantel or Josh, do you have that information?
So it's been there a long time.
I think it's been there for roughly 15 to 20 years.
15 to 20 years, so it was in the variance, great.
Probably in the 70s, somewhere thereabouts.
Okay. Oh,
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that has any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing no one?
Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion to close the public hearing on this matter.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Madam Chair, I would further like to make a motion pursuant to Section 6.1.3, non-conforming single and two-family residential structures of the zoning bylaw. The planning board finds that the height increase, alteration, and change of the non-conforming attached residential garage at 5 Keens Road will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the previously existing non-conforming detached garage, subject to the terms and conditions contained in Exhibit A attached.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Have a good evening.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a good night, folks.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to take items 6B, 6C, and 6D together for discussion purposes.
Thank you.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item B is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 1.5.1, light manufacturing or processing plans of the Network Drive Plan Development, PD zoning bylaws, 15 Blue Sky Drive, 9th Cycle Inc. is the applicant. Item C is application, item C is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 1.5.4, hazardous and toxic materials, chemical use, storage, transport, disposal, or discharge of the Network Drive Plan Development, PD zoning bylaws, 15 Blue Sky Drive, 9th Cycle Inc. is the applicant. Item G is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 1.5.6, generation and storage of hazardous waste in excess of the volumes classified as a very small quantity generated of the Network Drive Plan Development, PD zoning bylaws, 15 Blue Sky Drive, 9th Cycle Inc. is the applicant.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. For the record, Christine Hung, Reamer and Bronstein, attorney for the applicant, N-Cycle. With me tonight, I have Chris Thorne, who is the VP of Engineering at N-Cycle. N-Cycle is a metals processing and extraction company that was founded in 2017. They currently operate their headquarters out of Beverly, Mass., but they're looking to expand and relocate their headquarters to Burlington at 15 Blue Sky Drive. At 15 Blue Sky Drive, they'll take up approximately 46,000 square feet, of which 20,000 will be office and 17,000 will be lab for R&D purposes only. As I mentioned, they're looking to grow to about 100 employees. And as Chris, I'm going to turn it over to him. He's going to describe the operations, but they're an innovative company, sustainable extracting metals. I'm not versed in any of the chemistry of it, but Chris will walk you through some of the operations. But they're excited to be relocating to Burlington. And we met with Christine Mathis informally, and we had a DCM meeting. We went to the Board of Health, where the board and Dr. Weiner had many questions for them. They unanimously approved this application, and we are agreeable to the 6 conditions that they have. So now I'll turn it over to Chris, and he can describe the operations.
You were doing a great job. You should go.
Yes.
Thank you. So N-Cycle is really interested in circular economies and keeping critical minerals in our supply chain and using them as often as we can to the nth, if you will. We use, what differentiates us from other technologies that can extract metals or separate them is we use water and electricity fundamentally. We don't use some of the more toxic processes that are involved in leaching or processes that cook the metals or cook the minerals like a pyro process. Ours is a clean process, and we don't squander any of the other good materials after we've separated the metals from whatever our input feed stream is. Next slide. This is a little history and timeline of the company. It was founded in 2017, as Christine mentioned. We did just recently win a Bloomberg New Energy Award. Our CFO and CEO got to meet the Prince and Princess a couple months ago at Green Tech, which is very exciting. And we're looking to move to Burlington basically starting in the June timeframe. We'll have office space available, and then as the lab's built out, we'll have a couple phase move-in that starts in September, and then again in January is when it'll all be built out. We're very excited because it's a much larger space than we're in right now. And as Christine said, we're looking to expand this year from 30 people to about 80, and then we're going to grow again, probably to 100, 120. This is the leadership team. So Megan O'Connor is our founder and CEO. Chad Vasidis is our co-founder. Chad developed the technology while he was a professor at Harvard over the course of about a decade. Megan came along, and the technology was really developed to purify water, to pull metals out of a water stream. And Megan had the idea of, if we were to put a recycled stream into that water, could you separate those metals, and thus formed the company. So when she graduated with her PhD from Duke, they formed a company. I think it was within a week or two later. So they founded the company, and you see the pictures of the rest of the leadership team there. There were many schools involved in bringing this to fruition. There was some time at Yale, some time at MIT, but it was predominantly built in and advanced during Chad's time at Harvard. This is a view of the sort of the innards of the space. You can see the blue is the lab space, and the office space is pretty much untouched. Will be untouched from what it is today. It's really just building out the lab space. That is different than what it looks like today. We're really excited about Burlington. It's been very welcoming to this point. Even the Board of Health meeting felt very welcoming. We did get a letter from the administrator, and it's just a strategic location for us. Beverly is fine. It's an okay space, but the amenities here, and frankly, just the strategic location for attracting talent, growing from 30 to 80 in a year is no small feat. And having this location is incredibly desirable. It's easy to get to from a lot of access points. Mine in particular, I must say. It's difficult to get to Beverly.
Are you a Burlington resident?
Yeah.
What's that?
Are you a Burlington resident?
No, I live in Norfolk, Mass. So this is going to cut it in half. So it'd be- yeah. Not yet, I should have said.
We're not. We're not.
So also some welcoming notes from Nordblum. They are the landlord at Blue Sky, and we did have a visit from Seth Moulton a few months back, and he Representative Moulton has a background in physics, so he actually really put us through our paces in the lab, and we were kind of expecting that. I was getting a little sweaty there with him, so he put us through his paces. This one. This is just a picture of, in our sort of ethos on the side, in our company culture. It is a very tight-knit group, as you can see, in this off-site picture. The schools below, we have a very healthy, actually, intern and co-op program. We have pretty much 4 every single session, and we pull a lot from local schools. This is not all the schools, but Northeastern is a really good partner of ours, and we turn these into hires. It's not just getting some work out of them. It's a feeder program for us. And I think this is the last slide. That's a picture of, that's actually inside the lab. It's a bit ago. You can get a little flavor for the technology. It's sitting right there in the middle in the blue. That's just called a filter press, but the core technology is the plates that are inside that, and that's what does the magic in pulling these metals out.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So, welcome any questions the board may have.
Sure. Staff, do you have anything you want to comment on?
No, not really. When they came to our DCM, they did a lot more in-depth about what they do, which was really fascinating to me. I think it's really cool what they do. I think the metals that they extract can then go back into batteries instead of having to go and mine those somewhere else. we create that circular loop here, so we don't have to go and mine them elsewhere. So it's a really cool system.
Very, yeah, it sounds amazing. You mentioned that there was 6 comments that you had to adhere to. I
Yep.
noticed that there's fire department, board of health comments. Would you mind sharing those with
Sure,
us?
so the Board of Health comments are, they're all their usual things.
Sure.
So hazardous materials disposal permit, they have to do a Massachusetts contingency plan, demolition order, noise control plans, dust. Board of Health shall determine if an appearance is required. There's 6 they're general statements. I also wanted to let you know, I don't know if he's still here, but Dr. Weiner is also on the WebEx. I don't know if you could see that, but I just wanted to let you know that he is here.
And any hazardous materials are gonna be stored in-house before disposed? They're not, nothing's exterior when they.
Yeah, there's nothing going down the drain, everything's being carted off by a third party.
But everything's going to be maintained in the building
Yeah, in the
before it's
building.
disposed of? There's
Correct.
nothing outside of the building?
Nothing outside, yeah.
Okay. I mean, I think it's a great concept, and kudos to you for everything you folks have done. I don't have any questions or comments.
Excuse me. So I assume you're going to be extracting lithium from batteries. Anything else, any other materials that you're?
It's actually not lithium we're extracting the cobalt and the nickel in the case of the lithium-ion batteries, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. The lithium is in a brine, and that's going to be, that can be sold off separately and pulled out separately, yeah. We react generally with the transition metals, and those are the 2, in this particular case, that we target.
Cobalt and nickel.
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else on the board have any questions or comments?
I do.
Sure.
I'm just curious. So you use water and electricity
Yep.
to extract these metals.
Yep.
What, are there any residual elements left in the water? What happens to the water? Is it reused? What happens after that?
Yeah, great question. So in the example of the lithium-ion battery case, the first thing we do is dissolve to the point where where the cobalt and nickel are dissolved, and then not everything is dissolved. So there's a lot of materials, like the graphite, for instance, that we filter out immediately, and that becomes a waste. And we run it through our core technology, we separate the nickel and the cobalt, and that becomes a solid, and we can filter that out. So everything that's left in that material becomes a waste, and that gets hauled off.
Okay, so you'll have some sort of toxic waste storage on site in the building, and then it gets removed periodically?
Correct.
Is that
Yep.
correct?
That's how we operate today as well.
Okay,
Yep.
so I know this is probably already in your plan, but I just feel we need to state that that waste storage has to be all contained within your building.
Yes,
It cannot be in an exterior building.
We are well aware, yep.
Okay,
Yeah, we've gone extensively through the fire and building codes, and we have,
thank you. So then, once you extract the metals, you then sell them to other companies that use them?
yeah, for instance, a company that could turn it into another battery. To be clear, in Burlington, we are not doing this at a commercial scale. We have a facility in Ohio that we're building, which will do this at a commercial scale. And it
So this is
completely,
just
this is really a
development.
lab setting to look at the applicability of the technology to
Okay.
various products. So we do it at very
Small
small
quantity.
scale, exactly.
I
And-
understand.
Yep, it's only to optimize that process to put into a production environment later, yeah.
Okay,
So
thank you.
we will not be bringing in, buying material, and then selling it out of the Burlington facility at all. There's no commerce involved in Burlington.
Okay, I understand, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Great. Does anyone else have any questions or comments?
And this will be your location, so you're moving to this location?
Yeah, correct.
So,
Yep.
yep, and vacating where you're at up and,
When we can, yeah, the lease there it won't be done in, will not be ending coincident with our move.
Could you try again?
I'm so sorry about my watch. Will not be done coincident with when we move into Burlington. So we may use that facility for storage, maybe sublease it. We haven't quite figured that out. But when the lab is ready, we are wholesale moving to Burlington, yeah.
Great. Dr. Weiner, I hate to put you on the spot. Do you have any questions, comments, or would you like to make a statement about this applicant?
If you check, oh, there you go.
I'm unmuting. I just was kind of interested to see what planning board questions may have. We completely vetted them, and we voted unanimously to approve with the conditions. I know that I spoke to one resident at great length, and she said to me that she would be on this call, and therefore I just got on. So I'm just a spectator here. We completely vetted, went through everything. I think that the last comment was the most important, that this is not going to happen in a large scale. The processes, this is an R&D institution here in Burlington, and every single one of our conditions covers the safety for this organization to be here. When all of the materials are all of the materials are going to be handled appropriately, and we will inspect them. We'll inspect them during the year. So this is not a one and done, as we do with all hazardous materials within the community and within organizations to inspect. So I just thought I'd tune in to see how planning board, I great respect of what you do and how you do it, and I just thought I'd tune in. Thank you for calling on me, and thank you for doing what you do.
You as well. Thank you, Dr. Weiner. This is a public, yep.
One more question?
Sure, of course.
So when the building is fully occupied, how many people will there be there?
80, you said 80.
Our max will be about 120. We're 30 now. We'll grow to 80.
Yep.
And that 120, that's like a 5-year plan. It's about 120, 24.
And how many total square footage do you would you be occupying?
It'll be about 46,000 square feet.
46,000 square feet, is that what you said? Christine? Thank you.
If it helps, there's seating in there for about 140 from the previous occupant, so
Room to grow.
we're gonna have some space now.
Thank you.
It looks like with those type of numbers, you could look into some well certification, which might be something that would be interesting for your employees. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the public that would like to have, make a question or have, conduct a question or comment? Seeing no one? May I have a motion?
All right, actually, I wasn't ready for that. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing on this matter.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Madam Chair, I'd further like to make a motion to approve the request of Nth Cycle Incorporated for a special permit pursuant to Sections 1.5.1, light manufacturing, 1.5.4, hazardous toxic materials and chemical use and storage, and 1.5.6, generation or storage of hazardous waste of the Network Drive Planned Development District zoning provisions to permit the operation of a materials science firm at 15 Blue Sky Drive, formerly Network Drive, subject to the terms and conditions contained in Exhibit B attached.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Welcome to Burlington.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Thank you
you,
to
guys.
the planning staff. And Dr. Warner, thank you to you and the Board of Health for your assistance and guidance through this process.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Weiner.
you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to take items 6E through 6M together for discussion purposes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Did we record this last time?
No, but when I was doing the staff report, I did think about you.
I appreciate it. In my next life, I'm gonna be an auctioneer. Item E is as a public hearing, application for approval of an amendment of a definitive subdivision plan, District Avenue and Park Place. NEEP Investors Holding LLC is the applicant. Item F is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 12.1.5 PD special permit requirements, zoning bylaws, 0, 100, 350, 600, 700, 800, 1200, 1500, 1600, 1700, 2400, District Avenue, National Development is the applicant. Item G is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 4.1, light manufacturing or processing.
I should have brought my last one.
Park Plan Development, PD District bylaw provisions, 0, 100, 350, 600, 700, 800, 1200, 1500, 1600, 1700, 2400 District Avenue, National Development is the applicant. Item H, public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 4.2, laboratories engaged in research, experimental and testing activities, including but not limited to the fields of biology, chemistry, electronics, engineering, geology, medicine, and physics, such the planning board making findings set forth in section 8.3.7.4 of the zoning bylaws and such the applicable rules and regulations of the Board of Health and New England Executive Park Plan Development. PD District Bylaw Provisions, 0, 100, 350, 600, 700, 800, 1200, 1500, 1600, 1700, 2400 District Avenue, National Development is the applicant. Item I is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 4.4, hazardous and toxic materials, chemical use, storage, transport, disposal, or discharge of the New England Executive Park Plan Development PD District Bylaws Provisions, 0, 100, 350, 600, 700, 800, 1200, 1500, 1600, 1700, 2400 District Avenue, National Development is the applicant. Item J is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 4.5, generation or storage of hazardous waste limited to the items classified as a very small quantity generator of the New England Executive Park Plan Development, PD District Bylaw Provisions, 0, 100, 350, 600, 700, 800, 1200, 1500, 1600, 1700, 2400 District Avenue, National Development is the applicant. Item K is a public hearing, application for approval of special permit pursuant to 4.12, biotechnology research, development, and manufacturing in the fields of biotechnology, medical, pharmaceutical, physical, biological, and behavioral sciences and technology, environmental science, toxicology, genetic engineering, comparative medicine, bioengineering, cell biology, human and animal nutrition manufacturing, in advanced and practical application in any such field or area, and including office, administrative, and support facilities related to any of the foregoing activities of the New England Executive Park Plan Development, PD District Bylaw Provisions, 0, 100, 350, 600, 700, 800, 1200, 1500, 1600, 1700, 2400 District Avenue, National Development is the applicant. Item L is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 5.7, discharge from man-made structures into the municipality zone wetlands of the New England Executive Park Plan Development, PD District Bylaw Provisions, 0, 100, 350, 600, 700, 800, 1200, 1500, 1600, 1700, 2400 District Avenue, National Development is the applicant. Item M is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 6.16, storage of oils and fuels, petroleum products, including storage for on-site heating purposes and landscaping maintenance equipment in excess of 50 gallons of the New England Executive Park Plan Development, PD District Bylaw Provisions, 0, 100, 350, 600, 700, 800, 1200, 1500, 1600, 1700, 2400 District Avenue, National Development is the applicant. Good evening, folks.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. I always feel so guilty when you have to.
Can we not do this again? Maybe next time we just like put a couple applications? No. Jeez, that's fine.
Pleased to be before you tonight, continued public hearing for this project, and Katie Snyder, obviously with National Development. We have our same cast of characters here as before, and had a brief presentation. I always think brief, and it gets a little bit long, but we want to be thorough in terms of responding to some of the feedback we've received, and also get into the details a bit on a couple of things. But we have David Manfredi, who's here again, that's going to be presenting with Elkis Manfredi, the architectural firm. Also, we have his colleague, Brian Rossler, and we have Chris Jones, our landscape architect, who is participating remotely. Hi, Chris. And we have Eric Gerard as well, who's our civil engineer with VHB. But again, I don't have much to say. If you could just maybe go quickly just on the agenda. Obviously, we've had a few different times to meet with the board now about the project, and we wanted to just try to drill down a little bit on buildings B and C tonight. That was kind of how we left it before. We focused on building A previously, although we do have a couple of updates on that to be responsive to some of the things that we heard at the last meeting. I think particularly Board Member LaRue, you would ask for what that building A might look like from the mall side and what that Paseo might look like. So we actually have some updated renderings of that, which I thought might be helpful, as well as some of the commentary that we heard about trying to provide some wayfinding signage and the like on site in terms of the connectivity and whatnot. So we wanted to speak to that as well. We did also, we have a subdivision application amendment that was part of this submission as well, which we have a couple of slides at the end that we can speak to, but that really just has to do with District Ave being a subdivision roadway originally laid out. We are doing some slight modifications to the end of that near Building A in order to provide for frontage for that new lot. But nothing is changing in terms of the travel portion of District Ave as it exists today, so nothing would be different, but it's more just on paper, and we can address that. But next slide, Caleb, if you again, this is the similar slide that we've shown you before. Again, where we've been to date and how things have been progressing. We did meet with the Conservation Commission last week again. They're all ready to approve the project. They don't have any further issues. We kept it open, just wanting to have one more chance to be before the planning board, obviously, before they close that. But I think that John Keeley did submit comments to the board, I think indicating that they don't have any further concerns. So with that, maybe I can turn it over to Katie. I know
Sure.
you want a couple of things, but.
I'll also be brief tonight so we can get into the more pretty pictures. But we just took a moment with this slide here to really, I think we've heard a couple comments throughout the various discussions, either at subcommittee or here before the board, and thought we would just address them briefly in a few short bullets about building operations. We kept it simple. We actually had a version of this with a lot more detail, but I think it just kind of put a fine point on the fact that we intend for all three buildings to have, to be fully monitored, right? To have security and to be fully monitored and be in operation. So we'll get into some more specifics about the buildings, especially B and C tonight, where you'll see sort of some public space within the buildings. But wanted to be clear about the fact that these are facilities that will have security. They'll be monitored, because I think there's just, out of the pure operation of what they will be doing. So they'll have a lobby at the ground level. There will be a security operations system there, and people won't be flowing through these buildings. They won't be walking into people's labs. So obviously, just wanted to kind of put a fine point on the fact that they'll be secure facilities. All of the loading, we've sort of intended and thought about carefully in terms of keeping that away from the main public ways and kind of tucked away and screened to the extent that we can do that. And I think another comment we've heard a few times is with regards to hazardous materials and storage, and what will that look like and how will that feel. So I think we wanted to just clarify that we'll keep all of that on the interior. I think we've said it out loud, so we wanted to kind of provide it in writing here. We will look to keep everything within the building. And furthermore, hazardous materials are highly regulated, so they'll be in specific spaces in the building. Those spaces and those walls and everything around them are going to be designed specifically for that use and will be fully regulated. So we will follow and comply with all applicable laws. And then the final bullet was just with regards to, we don't have a tenant today for any of these buildings. We're looking to kind of build the dream, right? We would love for this to get approved, and we would like for people to come to the district and bring their life science tenants to the district. So at that point, once we identify those tenants, they'll go through their typical process of applying for a building permit, and we'll know more then. So just wanted to kind of put a finer point on a few of those items, and if there's more questions, we can certainly go into it. And with that, we're gonna jump into BC and circle back to subdivision.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi.
David Manfredi from Elkis Manfredi Architects. And joined by my colleague Brian Rossler. You're looking at a slide, you've seen all of these images before. Well, no, I think maybe there's one new one. But tonight we want to show you, as Katie said, answer some of your questions about Building A with regard to the connection between Building A and the mall, actually the end of the street and all the way over to the mall, and the space between the building and the adjacent parking structure. Chris will talk about in more detail about the central lawn and Vinebrook Park. As I mentioned, we'll talk about that Paseo, and there were some questions about wayfinding. So next, please. So you had a question, a specific question about relationship between all of what we're doing and the mall property. And there are two photographs here on the right of existing conditions. The one on the upper right is a view existing today from our property towards the mall. It's actually at taken at the very bottom of that plan, almost just left of where it says 600, if you can, yeah, there you go, right there. Actually, a little further back, now that you're scrolling, I can see it's a little further back. And you're looking towards the mall, there's a roadway, but then there's a fence. And the second photograph, the one below, is actually looking back from the mall. You can see there's a chain link fence with vinyl on it. And the day the photograph was taken in that kind of auxiliary parking space, parking lot, there's a series of containers. So there's not really connection today, or at least not on a regular basis. If you go to the next, you'll see what we are proposing. So from very similar location, on the upper right is a view from the end of, well, from right in front of 700, looking between Building A and the parking structure, what we're calling 699, what we're calling the Paseo. So on the left is the new building, on the right is the parking structure. This is a pedestrian-only way, and you see a orange frame at the back. What we're trying to signal through a little bit of environmental graphics is that there's something beyond, that the walk through the Paseo is worth the effort because there's something beyond. And what's beyond is, in fact, that path that would take you to the mall. If you're looking from the mall side, again, now you're standing within about 60 feet of Building A on the right and the parking garage on the left. And again, that orange frame, and the orange obviously comes out of all of our graphics for the district. Again, it's a kind of destination, a marker to make things feel closer, but also as a way to introduce the idea that there is something beyond worth the effort. So trying to make as much connection as we can, all on our own property, and obviously we need some help on the other side to really make this connection stronger. If you go, another view, again, a little further back now I'm onto mall property, just about where that last view was, that last photograph was, where you saw all those containers and the vinyl chain link fence. So on the left is the parking garage. A couple weeks ago, when we were here, we talked about that corner, the southwest corner of the parking structure, having a stair, glass enclosed, so there's activity and there's light. On the right is Building A, the proposed life science building. If you go to the next, we just wanted to bring back a couple things because I think there might have been some outstanding questions. These are several different snippets, I'll call them, of the parking structure that's proposed adjacent to Building A. On the left, you see the corner that is directly opposite the front door of the building. It is both the stair, but also the elevator enclosure for all of the parking levels. The idea being you're getting a long view, but you're also feeling secure and safe because there's the visibility from the outside in. And it acts as a kind of light beacon at nighttime at the end of the district avenue. The other thing I wanted to point out, we talked about this before, the two upper middle photographs are the texture and detail of the parking structure. And what this is it is a panelized system. The texture you see is what we call board form. What it means is that when those panels are fabricated, they are fabricated in a form that gives them the texture that you see there. And I pointed out last time we were here, we just finished a parking structure at 99 Coolidge in Watertown with National Development, and that's exactly where these photographs are from. It may not be exactly the same as this, meaning you have the opportunity to change the form, change the texture, and we probably make this one unique to Burlington. You also see on the upper right that a view to the ground level where we have our bike storage, also opportunity for bike repair. And we know there's an interest in bringing more art integrated into the architecture of these buildings. There's an opportunity at the bike room to do a big mural having to do with cycling, and something that gets lit and again activates the base of the building and engages pedestrians. And that's what you see at the bottom right is that east facade of the parking structure with the bike storage at the base, and then the tower of stairs, the kind of beacon of light on the southeast corner. I think that's the last one that's the south end of the site. And then more towards the middle of the site, we showed you 2 weeks ago, life science buildings B and C. And so directly west of the roadway, directly east, I'm sorry, of the roadway is proposed 2 new life science buildings. They are labeled here as B and C. You can see that they are very similar. They are intended to be similar, not exactly the same. They are positioned so that one is directly on the street, the other is further back with a central lawn in between. The idea is to create another green space, to replace some surface parking with some green, have 2 buildings that do relate to each other. They're not, as I said, they're not identical. I'm going to show you a rendering in a moment. They're clad in a what's called ultra high performance concrete panels. It's a relatively new technology that is much lighter, visually lighter than historic precast concrete, which many of these buildings, that was their original construction. And much more control over color, the ability to create light colors and very clean and crisp buildings. The idea of the central lawn is that it's a gathering place, both for the inhabitants of these 2 buildings, but for everybody in the district, and also publicly accessible. It will be visible from the street, and the intention is it's not fenced, it's not private. It is private property, but it is publicly accessible. Both, what we're trying to show, and there was a question 2 weeks ago about the pathway from this new parking structure B, how do you get from there exactly where the hand is right now, and that's the building core where the elevators are. And this parking structure will be very similar to parking structure A. That corner will be very similar in that it will be glass enclosed. That's where the elevators will be and the stairs. The lobbies for the 2 buildings are what's shown in pink, and the idea is that they are on the north side of the building. They're visible to visitors entering the district from the north. And they're also what we call through lobbies, meaning that you can enter, if you leave the parking structure, come down the elevators, you walk directly across the street, you enter that lobby, the elevators are right there. But it's also that entire northern edge, so that if you come by Uber and the Uber drops you off right by Central Lawn, you don't have to walk around the building. You can walk where that pink is getting thinner is another entrance into the lobby. The remainder of the ground floor, all of the white, and I'm going to show you this a little bigger in a moment, is all tenant space. Could be amenity space for the tenants, but could also be lease space for tenants in the building. On the left is a piece of a rendering that gives you a sense of how these buildings come to the ground, meet the central lawn that Chris will describe, and this cladding material, this ultra-high performance concrete, gives you the ability to get light colors, texture that previously we couldn't do. And so if you go to the next, you will see it, well, you'll see plans first, and then you'll see it close up. So here's building B. And you can see the pink is the lobby, you can see the elevators. There's two entrances. There's the entrance on the east, which faces directly to the parking structure. There's the entrance on the west, which is on the lawn and where a drop-off would be for rideshare. If you go to the next, it's Building C. And Building C is kind of the opposite hand, meaning there's an entrance directly out on the main drive. There's also an entrance right at the central line. And it's intended to do two things: make the walk as close as possible to the parking structure, but also to have the buildings address both the street and the central lawn, encourage people to go out to the central lawn on a regular basis. You can see all the loading is on the south side, basically out of view. What we're showing, you can go to the next one. This is a view, basically you're standing in front of the hotel looking south across District Avenue, and what you can see is the buildings are similar, they're not identical, the color may be slightly different, but we want the colors to be light. We want these to be light buildings in a very green landscape. A big part of all of this is not just building more buildings, but creating more green space and replacing surface parking with green space. If you go to the next, this is a little closer in view now. I'm looking directly into that central lawn. And if you look closely, it might be a little bit hard to see from this distance, but the texture, the color, the profile of that ultra-high performance concrete is a little bit different from the building on the left to the building on the right, and that's our intent. They're siblings, but they're not identical. And with that, Chris from Indiana will talk more about landscape.
Thanks, David, and thanks, everybody. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person tonight. See you soon. For the record, Chris Jones, IBI, landscape architecture. David's diagram that he presented a moment ago is really key to the overall thinking about how we organize the park space. There was a strong desire to turn Road A into a complete street, to have an active edge there, much like District Avenue. And the organization of the open space has been designed to create that active edge adjacent to Road A. It can function as a drop-off, but it also can be an active handshake from a circulation standpoint between B and C. One of the sort of design concepts of how to make a successful open space is to provide a rich variety of uses, both active and passive, because there are A personalities and B personalities, those who want to be seen and those who want to just sit and watch. And it's really nice to have that mix designed within space. And not only that a space can flip in its use. And what I mean by that is that the large open lawn may be that passive space on a daily basis. And people sit at the edges and there's a sort of an active visual connection as you move along the circulation routes, north and south, east and west. But when an event happens, now all the people and the activity comes to the center of the lawn, whether that be a movie night or a concert or some fundraising spin cycle class or something that happens, and the stage becomes the active piece. And so we're trying to think about how the space, the central lawn, offers that flexibility of use, offers that variety of space. It is an image you've seen before, but I just wanted to touch on a little bit more in detail the thinking and the organization of the elements. Next slide. And this, you saw this view again. This is really demonstrating the active edge from Road A, the view from Road A, that can use the green space. And it's a fairly generous green space. It will be, it will really stand out and be unique in the entire development. Next slide. You've seen this again, just on the east side of Building B. This is another strong centerpiece speaking to diversity of landscape, of native expression of landscape that is connecting to the Vine Brook. We call it Vine Brook Park, as I've told you before, and its form and pattern is all trying to be expressive of sort of a meandering stream and leading you to the brook. It's a mix of shade and sun, of materiality of concrete and wood, of dry stream and rain garden, and a variety of trees and open space mixed into that. Next slide. And you've seen that view looking from 1600 on your right back to Building B, and seeing this rain garden and dry stream element that is moving underneath the elevated deck that connects you from the path to the entrance to 1600. Next. Just again, to reinforce the overall theme about performative and sustainable landscape that is really focused on nature and habitat, native species, minimal irrigation along the Vine Brook, minimal to no irrigation along the Vine Brook actually, and really sort of weaving through some of the original concepts of the early development throughout the rest of the campus, because we're afforded the ability to create more green space by the removal of surface parking. And again, we feel we've been fairly successful with stormwater management and open rain gardens, and we're excited about extending and continuing that theme throughout the development. Next slide. This is a tough one to look at, but it is, it really speaks to the fact that what was once New England Executive Park, Office Park, filled with parking and roadways to feed parking, is becoming a very complex network of pedestrian circulation and open space. And that is a wonderful thing for this development. Far more green, far more walkable, and far more interconnected in many ways than just vehicular to door. There are 4 major connections that we're trying to make through the development to the mall, and with future connections that take you to Mall Road and ultimately making Leahy and this development and mall all more interconnected than they are today. Next slide. And as such, wayfinding is crucial to making this work. And in our presentations to the Concom and past presentations to the Planning Board, everybody is really zeroed into the idea of how do you get people to the Vine Brook, to engage in this natural edge, to be able to flow through east-west, west-east, east-west through the campus and make those connections. At the bottom of this graphic, you can see those 4 arrows that I wanted to highlight, which are the 3 of the existing connections, 600, Road A, and the connection to the furthest north, and the new one we'll create at Building A. And these 4 connections, I wanted to diagram how they all provide east-west flow to the Vine Brook. And what we see in this is to create a hierarchy of wayfinding where there are gateways that occur along that western edge that mark your arrival to the development. And it's interesting, you'll see this in the slide. You saw it a minute ago, you'll see it in the slide coming up. The gateway that occurs at Building A that we're proposing, we all know it sits right next to a parking lot. And it reminded me of how Norman Leventhal built the Boston Harbor Hotel with an elevated highway next to it, knowing that someday that highway would change and a far better connection would happen. And I think that's kind of what we're trying to do here today, is that same thing. We know it's not a great connection today. We know that 2 of these connections aren't great today. But someday they will be, and we've set the framework for that to happen. So we feel really good about that. Before you flip to the next slide quickly, this hierarchy that you'll see here is that we've defined a trailhead location. This pink loop that you see is sort of the walking mile, with the trailhead occurring near 2400 and allowing you to loop clockwise around and return. Along the way, we see the opportunity for informational signs, whether they're sort of interpretive nature signs that tell you a little bit about the brook, about the environment. Those would occur at the overlooks. And then general wayfinding that would occur not only at the gateways, but at the key intersections along District Avenue and near the BC Garage, all with the intent of giving guidance and direction back and forth to the Vine Brook and throughout the campus. And then there would be a smaller mileage marker that's a part of the pink loop you see. Next slide. These things haven't been designed yet, but this image at the bottom shows the intent that they have a hierarchy of both scale and information. You know, the mile marker is a small little element, the gateway is grand, the trailhead might be a singular element, and then the informational wayfinding sign. So yet to be designed. I'm not a signage expert, but we wanted to put the framework in place for that signage designer at some point to take this and run. Next slide. I mentioned that one of the connections near Building 600, and you all duly noted that while there is a physical break in the landscape that allows you to connect at Building 600, there is no walkway. So what you see in here in orange is the proposal to add new walkway to make that connection to District Avenue from that mall connection, including crosswalk striping in the parking lot to make that a safe and accessible connection. So just wanted to point that out. Next slide. And lastly, this was my point about the gateway at Building A and the Paseo and how it's early in the game. It's important open space for Building A and Building 700 users and people who want to come and go through this connection. Someday it may be grand once the parking lot and changes to the mall happen. And we're kind of excited to be able to set that guideline and goal for the future. The images really speak for themselves. We're trying to create a very active and energized space that allows for spill out and functions throughout the day. Next slide. And I'll hand it off to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Eric Gerard, civil engineer with VHB, and just wanted to take a moment to run through a couple slides showing the proposed subdivision modifications for the amendment that was submitted. Up on the plan, all the blue lines are the lot lines out on the district property. And the yellow lines in and around the southerly side, the elongated cul-de-sac, are the existing property lines that we're looking to modify. And the red lines are highlighting the changes to those property lines. So essentially, what we're looking to do is modify two of the lots, essentially the lot 600 and lot 700, modifying those two and creating a new lot, which essentially will house where Building A sits. Along with that is the modification to District Ave, and that's primarily why we're here for the subdivision modification. Otherwise, it could be handled just with the A&R process. We are not making any changes to the traveled way, the roadway, the utility infrastructure within that. So primarily just extending kind of that existing tangent straight across, and then keeping the upper loop to not need to modify those parcels because it's not impacted. And this is consistent with keeping a similar offset for the buildings along District Ave as we're looking at placing the new garage next to 600. So this is just showing those modifications, and happy to answer any questions regarding that. And sorry, one other note regarding buildings B and C. At a later date, there are no changes to the subdivision, the right-of-way in that location. And if we are going to modify a lot line in there, it would be handled with a simple A&R process in that location.
Thank No, not really.
I have a couple things. At one point, we had talked about, the design for the Mall Road median. I haven't seen that in this packet, so can we make that available for the next subcommittee meeting and then for presentation for the 18th?
Yes, absolutely. We have one more slide, which we were just gonna reference that we have our plan for the 18th. So Vinod Calicri, our traffic engineer, was not able to join us tonight. He had a conflict. So we have a couple things we want to address. The question and concern with the exiting, turning out of the intersection at District Ave and Mall Road. And then additionally, Chris has been working behind the scenes over the last couple weeks to develop further the median plans. And we have those two items to bring back to you on the 18th. Along with a couple other, I think there's a couple other comments about complete streets and, bike lanes along District Ave that we want to address with Vinod at the table. So it's on the agenda.
Great.
Thank you for bringing it up.
On page 20, talk about solar energy harvesting, but it's only in one spot in this entire plan. So can you talk to me a little bit about what that is and why it's only in one small location of the subdivision? Solar energy harvesting.
Oh, it should have more dotted lines. We are proposing, as you know, to include, solar PV. I assume that's what that references, Chris. I'm looking to you. But we have the solar PV included on the Garage A as well as Garage B and C.
What about Garage 800?
We don't have 800 part of our program in this phase.
And, I think that's it. That's all I have.
Yep. So the two new garages that we're proposing to include those, and then I misspoke, I should include, when the expansion, if the expansion were to go forward on the Garage 2400, that would also include PV solar array on it.
Okay, and then is 800 the one where they have the ability to add to it?
It's
That was actually, that was 700,
Mhm.
which is the one nearest, behind building 700, obviously,
Oh, yep.
Garage 700, yeah.
Yep.
Which, at one point, there were approvals to add another
200 spaces.
200 spaces.
Yep.
But it was determined that that's not the optimal location for it, just.
And so we were gonna put that in the decision that they're not getting that, we were taking that back, I guess. I don't know how you would denote that, but, I just wanna make sure that that's in the cards. Does anyone else on the board have any questions, comments, concerns? Ernie?
I had a question. No, on the northeast corner of the property, is there any way, or is there already pedestrian access to the Mall Road sidewalk from there? I think that's where the waterfall is, isn't it, for Pine Brook?
Yeah, we do have a connection.
Do we?
Well, we have a connection here just at east of 2400 to Mall Road, streets down.
It's like a stone dust, I think it's a stone dust path, Chris, right, that connects.
So you don't have to walk all the way down to the driveway to get back on the road, is that?
That's exactly right, yeah.
Could we have some wayfinding there as well? Maybe just like a little welcoming sign?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just have a few things, and they're not necessarily things we have to talk about tonight, but I'd like to understand a little better the schedule of what will happen when. And so throughout, which part of the project will occur first, et cetera. And we had talked about some of the Vine Brook Walk that was part of your previous decision, that has to be done early, but I think we also feel very strongly that the Mall Road improvements would have to be done early, so I think we'd like to flesh out the schedule for all of this. And then I had a couple of quick questions. You had mentioned artwork. I think it's wonderful that you're considering artwork, but it was said in passing that it would be lit, so that's something we'll need to talk about, because neon and when it's lit and what hours it's lit and how brightly it's lit, those are all questions that we would have to consider as we decide on what's appropriate there, because we don't want anything that's too brilliant, that's lighting things up at night when there's nobody there. In addition, I had a question. The orange square gateways, is that a placeholder, or is that what you intend to have as your gateway? And if so, is that lit? Because in some of the pictures it looks lit, and in some of the pictures it doesn't.
It is a design proposal at this point, but it does represent the intent of creating a
Right.
gateway, a destination.
I like that idea. I just had a question about if it was going to be lit, how would it be lit? Is it externally lit? Is the whole thing lit up? Is it just lights on the bottom that shine up? So that's, and again, we don't have to answer those questions tonight. I just think these are things that we have to think about with the lighting. And that's all I have right now.
One quick question on page 9. I'm trying to tell, do the windows open or is it just a solid window? In some ways, they look like they might slide, and then other times, they look,
Windows are not operable. You're talking about in the
yeah,
lab building?
just in the buildings, B and C, the way, so
Yeah.
they're just solid, so there's no.
They don't open. The reason they don't open is because you don't, typically there's not operable windows in lab buildings because you don't want to create drafts. So you won't typically find any operable windows in lab buildings.
Okay, I didn't know that.
So then we wanted to discuss when the next subcommittee meeting could be. What's your availability look like? Barbara, I know that you have,
I'm getting my calendar out.
okay, let's do this.
What week are we looking at?
So, we had our pre-meeting, as we do up before every single planning board meeting of them, myself and the chair and the vice chair, and we kind of tentatively said the 11th at 1. We have to double.
Next Thursday.
Next Thursday, I'll have to double check with Jess, but I don't, with you guys.
Would that work for you?
Works for me, but.
Yeah.
Chris, are you free at 11 o'clock? I'm sorry, 1 o'clock on the 11th?
Double check that, should be able to.
I mean, you
Sure,
can.
we can get a team together.
Yeah,
We don't have to answer right now.
Yeah,
That's
we
our
could- we could-
proposal.
Exactly.
1 o'clock, that's
Okay.
helpful.
Is there anyone else that has any questions, comments, or concerns?
I have one question, Madam Chair. So, you had a really great visual about, kind of bike share and how you're going to activate the first floor of, Garage A. I know that there's a smaller footprint of bike storage on the BC garage. Is it also going to be activated with glass? Is that gonna be a similar treatment to make it not,
Yeah, we actually haven't drawn that, but I
Okay.
think that's a nice idea.
Yes. Okay. Well, all that being said, may I have a motion then?
Yes. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to continue this public hearing to the planning board meeting of May 18th, 2023.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We'll see you on the 11th.
Thank you very much.
Be in touch, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we advertise the subcommittee meetings? We get it.
We will, the subcommittee meeting will be advertised, once we, so we can make sure we have a quorum. Yep, absolutely, you got Ernie, always above board.
Do we have any minutes?
No, we will have some for the next meeting.
I emailed.
You did email them,
we didn't get it.
we
We'll
didn't,
have that-
yeah,
we'll
we
have that in
didn't.
the next meeting.
we didn't wanna
You're
vote.
doing a great job,
We know
Eric.
who's slacking off. I'm teasing. I'm teasing.
No worries, Eric. We got your minutes, we just didn't think don't worry about it. We're good, Eric's amazing.
Community workshop, we're back at that again.
We're community workshop, design charrette, we just wanted to be able to publicize it, and so, on Tuesday, the 23rd, site tour, so basically walking around the district. I feel like a lot of, especially residents in town, you work in the planning board, you come here, you know.
Yeah.
Sure.
People don't really know, other than the mall.
Can we get that on, the planning board Facebook page, Twitter?
It's been
all
posted.
the social
It's been
media?
posted.
Oh, can you,
And reposted.
We need to do more to publicize it.
agreed, so
Residents
I'll
network.
put it on the residents
Yes.
network.
Great.
I'll get on
I
the.
can have we sent this to you guys as an email yet?
We can
This
send,
image
No,
itself?
but if you could, I'll get
Can
it on
we
the residents
send
network.
that image to Eric Conti and ask him to send it out to all the schools and have it go out to all the parents?
I don't see why not.
Let's do it.
Let's
All
ask them.
right, let's ask Conti to do it.
All right, so then Windview Heights, number 2.
Yes, if I may, just jump in here, I actually was gonna ask for one little change to the
Okay,
letter.
that's fine.
I hope everybody's had a chance to read it. I am proposing one change under paragraph C on the back side. I'd like to add the line, however, if such a development were proposed, the town would benefit from the normal rigorous planning board process.
I agree with that.
I agree with that. Can you email that to me?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions about the letter? I'm sorry, I should let you say that.
No, that's fine.
You wanna read it?
No, I read it.
Okay.
I was gonna say, just give it to her. That way
Oh.
you don't forget.
Yeah, if you can read my chicken scratch, if you can't, let me know.
Does anyone else have any questions, comments on that Windview? No? Do we have anything else that we'd like to discuss, folks?
Well, I think we have to vote on whether or not we're gonna send the letter.
Oh, yes, please.
Do we?
I
Yeah.
think that it would be, the proper protocol would, for,
That's fine.
if we're gonna send a letter on behalf of the board, we should have consent from the whole board, I would imagine.
May I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that the board instruct staff to send the letter that we are all discussing to the select board tomorrow.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Is there anything else we'd like to discuss, folks? May I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Before you go, we have a special permit for you guys to, 2 special permits for you
Yes.
guys to sign. And if you haven't done so already, please sign the plan.
Second?
Sorry.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.
Good job,
Thank you.
Madam Chair.